Masud Saab, I chanced across your stories in college. In a friend's room and got immediately lost in them. Pretty soon we had formed a fan club of sorts. Something in your story spoke to us. We who had gathered from elsewhere in that space as students of cinema. But this journey starts from somewhere else. From a curiosity about the lines in the book jacket, about Adavistan, which led us down the rabbit hole of obituaries and remembrances. There, again and again, we encountered mentions of your ancestral house, that it resembled the one that haunts your stories, in which so many of your characters roam, leave, and come back to.
This is the only place where I can write, he remarked. I've never written anything outside of my home. Even while his imagination spanned great distances, Masud's home is undeniably present in his writing. The neem tree, the entrance, the staircase, and the garden of Masud's home show up in various stories, as do the people that inhabited the place.
We searched on and found it in a neighborhood known as Nakas, in the heart of the old city.
It had so many sections and recesses. Some parts of the house were gloomy and dark, with heavy furnishings, while other areas were open and had lots of natural light. Much later, when I read his stories, I could not help but notice how much the house and its environment were integrated into the fiction he wrote.
The desire to see it in real has led us here. Masud Saab, we can't stop ourselves from imagining it. Bharath, the artist in our club, conjured up Adabistan from your stories, with the rest of our voices guiding him.
When they first come, every visitor looks with curiosity, at least once, at the odd looking fish resting on its anchor, on the small platform built in a corner of the reception room. And no one looking at it ever thinks that it's a bird whose business is with the wind. Everyone thinks of it as a decorative object, so no one asks me what it's for. Nor do I tell anyone that it's our weather vane, which no longer works.
A girl from my family had made this portrait, and since the girl had died only a few days later, the portrait had been set on the mantel above the fireplace in the living room so that anyone entering would notice it at once. A newcomer would look at it a good while, then examine it from closer up. It was really worth a good look. The creator had glued onto a dark-colored wooden board a piece of bark resembling a long thin branch, above which she had constructed the bird out of tufts of spotless cotton. For its outstretched wings, she had added real feathers to the cotton. A piece of red glass was used as an eye. The pointed claws were made of thorns from a bush. The bird's claws were raised in the air instead of resting on the branch, making it difficult to know whether the bird was landing on the branch or flying away. Perhaps that's why it was disturbing to look at for long. I had named it the camphor sparrow.
The curios in the reception room also included a miniature palace, built from tiny stone bricks of different colors. It was a complete palace with arches, columns, and turrets. It used to be said about this palace that at some point in time there really was a full scale likeness of it, the ruins of which could still be seen.
Come, he said and led me towards the side door of the house. There was an enclosed area straight across from the door. Tiny yellow leaves were scattered all over it. I looked up. The leaves of the ancient tree that overshadowed the better part of the area were coming down steadily.
We met Azhar Saab there, who graciously opened up Adabistan to us. Masud Saab, an empty hull of a space, is what I encountered. It was Azhar Saab who told us to walk the streets, said things will open up.
But your city, its crowds, its labyrinthine streets intimidated us. Even in the midst of your city, we felt somehow outside of it. We needed someone as a guide. Another storyteller we had chanced upon in our search walked with us. Someone who looked at the city the way you did.
I mean, you need to interpret what you see with the help of text, literature that already exists, that somebody who has seen it like that has written.
Samir had traced the city from its beginning as a small temple on top of a hill to its present state. He told us about its peculiar nature.
In that, it is like the entire city is slightly under the radar, so to say. And only somebody who understands the history will be able to. So it's not as if it's hiding, but it's hiding in plain sight. It's right there, maybe dust covered. But if you do not know the significance of what you are looking at, you will just pass it on as some shabby old piece of work.
On the way, we told him about our search for the missing insignia.
The whole fish thing, it is not that it is restricted to loyalty, to royalty. Fish insignia cuts across class and religion. And you will find these fish symbols and various variations of the same symbol throughout the old parts of the city.
Samir taught us a way to read the age of the city. To look for the telltale signs of Lakhori bricks revealed from the fallen plasters.
Have a look at that arch there. Multifoliated. So at one point in time, that would have been a courtyard up there. So all those arches opening into the courtyard. Those structures inside are the zenana. Yeah, so somebody would actually enter the house climbing a flight of stairs here. And there is a sort of a open gallery in front, veranda kind of thing, where men sit essentially. And those.
With him, the city started to slowly reveal itself.
This is such an incredible photograph, no? This what we are looking at here. So, for example, these walls that we see, you will find a mix of Lakhori and modern bricks there. You can even see that, well, what remains of certain doorways inside. You know, the entire building is now gone. It's almost like this is chalk for you. And so in the sense that when we say tradition, or what is the state of the city today, or whether the continuum is ruptured, this picture metaphorically is what it is, a patchwork. So there are people who would look at the Lakhori and say and appreciate it, because it tells them something about the age. There are others who would just see a plot to build a mall, and it is fair. It is the people, current population, which makes up the city, not what was 150 years ago. And the city, like I said, it's not, it does not exist in isolation. So everything about it, the food that we eat, how we behave, how we speak, is a mixture of the new and the old. There are clearly some value systems, some things from the older times which are worth preserving. Well, let's say worth celebrating, so to say. But to say that and only that is Lucknow is incorrect.
When it was time to part, I told him about the anxiety that we had of getting lost in the streets.
And you may find yourself. That's true. So, like they say, that in Lucknow, you don't go out in the street to get somewhere. The street is the destination.
We found the insignia, nested in the arches of decaying buildings in the older parts of the city, in the streets hidden behind the everyday. These strolls have convinced us that the fish is the insignia of the city.
ഹലോ ഹലോ എന്തായി മക്കളെ, നിങ്ങളവിടെ എത്തിയോ? നിങ്ങൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യുന്ന? നമ്മളിപ്പോ ഭക്ഷണം കഴിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നു. പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കാം. എല്ലാരും ഉണ്ടോ? ആ, എല്ലാരും കേട്ടോ. രാത്രിയിൽ ഇനിയിപ്പോ ഷൂട്ട് ചെയ്യണമെന്ന് നിൽക്കണ്ട കേട്ടോ. ആൾക്കാരെന്തെങ്കിലും കണ്ട് പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കിയാലോ? അത് നമ്മൾ നോക്കണം. നോക്കേ ചെയ്യൂ. സൂക്ഷിച്ച കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ചെയ്യേ. ഓക്കെ.
Amma calls anxiously every day. To her, the north is a recent memory of increasingly violent newsreels. I sometimes wonder about the crowds of your city in her mind. Asar Saab called us today, telling us that he had some photographs to show us. My excitement was not to see you. I wanted to see if I could locate her in them. The name that comes in your stories like an incantation.
ये अरबिस्तान की तस्वीर अच्छी है। ये भी नैयर मशहूर हमारे छोटे बेटे को गोद में लिए बैठे में वो होता है ना सरकमसेशन खतना।
There were recent photos of you. I asked to see older ones from your childhood.
ये उनकी बहन है, ये उनकी मदर हैं, ये सबसे बड़ी बहन है, और ये बचपन की तस्वीर आप कह रही थी ये हम हैं। ये नहीं मालूम कौन. हाँ, कोई जानने वाली तो नहीं है.
Asar Saab didn't remember her, but there were faces in them that he couldn't place.
और ये हाँ, आखिरी ज़माने की तस्वीर है. तो डेथ बेड के ऊपर है.
I found your grave at the end of the path by a perennial bush. There we met the caretaker of the Mood Maidan and his family. He felt like a character from one of your stories. A fellow writer who had finished a sequel to Umrao Jan and does chicken embroidery on the side to live by. In the end, it was your son that laid the search for her to rest.
और अगर है भी तो उस पर उन्होंने बहुत 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 काम किया कि वो कोई समझ ना सके कि कौन लड़की है. हाँ, चीजों को छुपाने में, उसको पूरी तरह से जाहिर ना करने में उनका उनका ये एक बहुत खास दिलचस्पी थी उनकी. और सब चीजों में, उनकी कहानियों में, उनके जो लिटरेरी आर्टिकल्स हैं उनमें, उनकी पर्सनालिटी में, उनके लेटर्स में, उनके दोस्तों के साथ जो रिलेशंस हैं उसमें, हर चीज में वो वाला पार्ट, हिडन पार्ट, उस पर वो बहुत काम करते थे. कितना एक्सपोज होना चाहिए. तो इसलिए जैसे हमने शुरू में कहा कि उनके दो बहुत अलग, उनकी पर्सनालिटीज की दो बहुत बहुत ज्यादा अलग, एकदम एक दूसरे से कॉन्ट्राडिक्ट करते हैं दोनों, एकदम मुतजाद हैं एक दूसरे के. एक अरे नैयर साहब तो ऐसे हैं और दूसरे नैयर साहब ऐसे. तो वो दोनों को किस तरह से बैलेंस करते हैं और छुपाते हैं, वो उनके आर्ट का सबसे खास चीज है कि हाउ टू हाइड.
It's been a couple of days now, roaming around the city. The tattered map that we set out with has sort of filled itself. We found the curios scattered around the city. In the fragments of the city's past, in the shadows, in the reflections of those buildings born of the Nawab's desires, we entered the spaces of his stories. The map in our hands now coincides point for point with the city, but it still feels like a ruined one, with pieces missing. And there's a growing fear that the city won't be able to fill them in. We've got the contact of an old friend of his, a writer. Maybe she would open things up for us, help us out of this rut.
നിങ്ങൾ തിരിച്ചു വരാറായില്ലേ മോനെ?
കുറച്ചു പേരെ കൂടെ കാണാനുണ്ടെന്ന് എന്നിട്ട് തീരുമാനിക്കും.
Amma's calls have a new urgency now.
ആണോ? ഇവിടെ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു പ്രശ്നമൊന്നും ആയിട്ട് കാണുന്നില്ല. കുഴപ്പമില്ല, ഡീൽ ചെയ്യാവുന്നതേ ഉള്ളൂ.
ചിലപ്പോ ലോക്ക്ഡൌൺ ഒക്കെ ആയാലോ?
The pandemic seems to have picked up again,
വരാൻ നോക്ക് മോനെ.
and her TV shows horror stories from the north.
നമ്മൾ നമ്മുടെ കാര്യങ്ങള് ചെയ്ത് തീർത്തിട്ട് എത്രയും പെട്ടെന്ന് തന്നെ ഇറങ്ങും.
എങ്കിൽ ശരി, നോക്കി ചെയ്യും.
The mosque outside seems to be suffocating with bodies. But your city seems oblivious to it.
A cloud of mist has descended upon your city. We met Aisha today. She introduced herself as a person who wrote stories for children, where animals talked.
जानवर जो कुछ बोलता है वो एनिमेशन जैसे आती हैं, तो भाई आदमियों की ज़बान में तो बोलता है, क्योंकि वो अपनी ज़बान बोलेगा तो आप क्या समझेंगे। तो वो वाली कहानियाँ लिखी हैं मैंने बहुत सारी, चिड़ियों की, जानवरों की, वो मुझे पसंद है। बिल्कुल जादुई ऐसा माहौल है, बिल्कुल जादू वाला, या जैसे खोया खोया सा मिस्टी एटमॉस्फेयर जिसे कहते हैं, धुंधला धुंधला, धुएं में डूबा हुआ, कोई चीज़ जिसमें साफ नज़र नहीं आती लेकिन खोई हुई भी नहीं, दिखती भी है। आप वो धुआं ज़रा सा हटाएं तो चीज़ साफ नज़र आने लगेगी। और खूबसूरत तो इतना है कि एक क्यूरियोसिटी आपके अंदर जगाता है कि आप आगे जाके देखें आगे क्या होता है, शायद इसका कोई सिरा मिले, हम जिस रास्ते पे सुरंग में चले जा रहे हैं शायद इसका कोई दरवाज़ा हो। इस टाइप का माहौल होता है उनकी कहानी। उनकी स्टोरीज़ में जो बैकग्राउंड थी लखनऊ था पूरा। बहुत से लोगों के यहाँ लखनऊ है, लेकिन उनकी जो राइटिंग्स थी उन्होंने जो बैकग्राउंड रखी है वो एक जो दुनिया, जो दीवारें, जो घर, जो लोग, जो सड़कें जो हैं वो उनकी इमेजिनरी थी, जो थी लखनऊ की। स्केच लखनऊ का है, लेकिन वो लखनऊ जो या तो मिट गया या अगर हाँ कहीं छुपा हुआ है तो किसी को ढूंढे नहीं मिलता, या उनके दिमाग में था, जिसे वो कहते थे कि मुझे ख्वाब में दिखाई देता है। वो ये कहते थे कि मुझे सपने में आता है, और उसी की कहानी में लिखता हूँ। तो इस तरह से उनकी कहानियाँ जो हैं वो एक जैसे जादुई दुनिया है, तिलिस्म जिसे कहते हैं। वो इसके अंदर खो के चला जाता है, वो दुनिया उसको जकड़ लेती है, उसमें से निकल नहीं पाता। अब पढ़ते तो सोचते हैं आगे पढ़ें, देखें क्या होता है, शायद इस बिल्डिंग की कोई ऐसी कमरा मिल जाए जिससे कोई पता चल जाए, आगे चलें शायद कोई ऐसा कैरेक्टर दिख जाए जो पूरा बता दे इसके बारे में, कहीं से कोई सिरा मिले। और आप पढ़ते चले जाते हैं, पढ़ते चले जाते हैं, आप उसे रख नहीं सकते।